Jake Sullivan checked his instruments one more time. The small fighter craft moved silently through space, its engines barely making a whisper. Behind him, 3 other ships followed in perfect formation. They were deep in enemy territory now, far from any human base or colony. "Amy, what do you see out there?" Jake asked into his radio. His voice was calm, but his hand stayed ready on the controls. Amy Carter was flying the ship next to his. She was one of the best pilots Jake had ever worked with. Her fingers danced over her scanner controls as she looked for any sign of danger. "Nothing yet, Commander," Amy replied. "But these readings are strange. Something big happened here recently." Jake nodded to himself. They were investigating reports of alien activity in this dead star system. Intelligence said the Ketharan had been building something here. The Ketharan were bad news. They had been expanding across the galaxy for thousands of years, taking whatever they wanted. "Tony, how are our engines?" Jake called to the 3rd ship. Tony Brooks was their engineer. He could fix almost anything that broke. "All good, Commander. We can run silent for another 6 hours if we need to." The 4th member of their team was Lisa Hayes. She handled communications and kept them connected to their mothership. The UES Nightfall was waiting for them at the edge of the system, invisible to enemy sensors. "Lisa, any word from Captain Martinez?" Jake asked. "The captain says to be careful," Lisa answered. "Long-range sensors are picking up some strange energy patterns." Jake looked out at the dead planet below them. Once, it might have been beautiful. Now it was just a rock floating in space. But the readings they were getting suggested something was hidden there. "Take us closer," Jake ordered, "but stay ready to run." The 4 small ships moved toward the planet. Jake felt the familiar tension that came before a fight. He had been in the military for 12 years. He knew when something was wrong. That's when the trap was sprung. Massive ships appeared from behind the planet's dead moon. They were huge, made of some kind of crystal that gleamed in the starlight. Jake had never seen anything so big. Each alien ship was 10 times the size of the Nightfall. "Contact! Multiple enemy ships!" Amy shouted over the radio. "They're coming right at us!" "All ships, evasive action," Jake commanded. His hands flew over his controls, turning his fighter hard to the left. Energy beams shot past his ship, missing by inches. The Ketharan ships were fast, despite their size. Bright weapons fire filled the space around the human fighters. Jake counted at least 8 enemy vessels, maybe more. "We're outnumbered," Tony called out. His ship spun wildly as he tried to avoid the alien weapons. Jake made a quick decision. He had to save his team. "All ships, launch stealth pods and get out of here. Return to the Nightfall immediately." "What about you, Commander?" Amy asked. She was already moving her ship toward the escape route. "I'll cover your retreat," Jake replied. He turned his fighter toward the largest enemy ship. "That's an order. Go now." Jake watched as 3 small pods shot away from his teammates' ships. The pods were almost invisible, designed to get pilots home safely. His friends would make it back to the Nightfall. Now he was alone against an entire enemy fleet. Jake pushed his ship's engines to maximum power. He dove toward the biggest Ketharan vessel, firing everything he had. His weapons were small compared to theirs, but he might buy his team a few more seconds to escape. The alien ship's weapons locked onto him. Jake twisted and turned. But there were too many enemy ships. A bright beam hit his engine, and alarms started screaming in his cockpit. His ship was dying. Jake fought the controls as his fighter spun out of control. Smoke filled the small cabin. Through his cracked window, he could see the alien ships moving closer. Another hit. This time, his weapons went offline. Jake's ship was completely helpless. Now, the largest Kethoran vessel moved alongside his crippled fighter. Jake could see strange lights moving inside the crystal hull. A tractor beam grabbed his ship and pulled it toward an opening in the alien vessel's side. Jake reached for the self-destruct button. He would rather die than be captured. But before he could press it, some kind of energy field surrounded his ship. His controls went dead. Even the life support system stopped working. The alien tractor beam pulled him inside their ship. Jake found himself in a huge hangar bay filled with strange machines and creatures he had never seen before. The air here was breathable, but it smelled wrong somehow. Tall figures in armor approached his ship. They moved on 6 legs and had 4 arms each. Their faces were hidden behind masks, but Jake could see glowing eyes watching him. They cut through his ship's hull with tools that made no sound. When they reached him, Jake tried to fight, but there were too many of them, and they were much stronger than any human. One of the aliens spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. Jake didn't understand the words, but he knew they weren't friendly. They dragged him from his ship and through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls were made of the same crystal as the ship's hull. Strange symbols glowed along the ceiling, probably their writing. Finally, they brought him to a large room. At the center stood the biggest alien Jake had ever imagined. This one wore no armor. Its skin was dark blue and covered in scars. 4 red eyes looked down at Jake with something that might have been amusement. The alien spoke, and somehow Jake understood the words. They must have some kind of translation device. "So this is a human," the creature said. Its voice was deep and full of contempt. "You are smaller than I expected." Jake said nothing. He had been trained for this situation. Give only name, rank, and serial number. "I am Commander Zethkai of the Ketharan Empire," the alien continued. "You are now my prisoner. Your pathetic species has been interfering with our expansion for too long." The alien commander walked around Jake slowly, studying him like a scientist might study an insect. "Tell me about your military bases," Zethkai demanded. "How many ships do you humans have?" Jake stayed silent. "No matter," the alien said with what might have been a laugh. "We will learn everything we need to know, and when we are finished with you, we will use what you tell us to destroy every human world." Jake was dragged to a small cell deep in the ship. As the door closed behind him, he allowed himself a small smile. The aliens thought they had won. They thought his team was dead and his ship was destroyed. They were wrong. Somewhere out there, the Nightfall was waiting. Captain Martinez and the crew would not abandon him. Jake just had to stay alive long enough for them to find a way to help. The aliens had made their first mistake. They had captured a human, but they didn't understand what that meant. Humans never gave up. They never left their people behind, and they were much more dangerous than the Ketharan realized. Jake had been in the alien cell for 3 days now. The walls were smooth crystal that glowed with a faint blue light. There was no bed, just a hard bench along one wall. The aliens brought him food twice a day, but it tasted like metal and made his stomach hurt. On the morning of the 4th day, 2 guards came for him. They were different from the ones he had seen before. These aliens were taller, and their armor was decorated with strange symbols. They grabbed Jake's arms and pulled him from the cell. The corridors of the ship seemed endless. Jake tried to remember the way they walked, counting turns and doorways. If he ever got a chance to escape, he would need to know the layout. The guards didn't speak to him or to each other. They brought him to a room filled with machines he didn't recognize. wires, and tubes hung from the ceiling like metallic vines. In the center was a chair that looked more like a torture device than furniture. Commander Zethkai was waiting for him. The alien commander stood beside a table covered with instruments that gleamed under the harsh lights. When he saw Jake, his 4 red eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Good morning, human," Zethkai said in his grinding voice. "I hope you slept well. Today we begin learning about your species." The guards forced Jake into the chair. Metal bands clicked shut around his wrists and ankles. He couldn't move now, but he kept his face calm. He wouldn't give these aliens the satisfaction of seeing his fear. "We have been studying your people for some time," Zethkai continued. He picked up a device that looked like a metal spider with glowing legs. "You humans are interesting. So weak individually, yet you seem to accomplish things that should be impossible." The alien commander moved closer. Jake could smell something like burning metal coming from Zethkai's skin. "Tell me about your military bases," the alien demanded. "How many ships guard your home world?" Jake stared straight ahead and said nothing. Zethkai made a sound that might have been laughter. "I expected this. Your species is known for being stubborn, but we have ways of making even the most determined creatures talk." The commander placed the spider-like device on Jake's forehead. Immediately, Jake felt a burning sensation spread through his skull. It wasn't exactly pain, but something worse. The device was trying to get inside his mind. Images flashed through Jake's thoughts. He saw his childhood home, his first day at the military academy, his friends on the Nightfall. But he also saw things that weren't real. Alien cities burning, human ships exploding, his teammates screaming as they died. "Interesting," Zethkai said, watching lights flicker on a nearby screen. "Your mind is more organized than most species we encounter. But everyone breaks eventually." For 2 hours, the alien commander tried different devices on Jake. Some made him see terrible visions. Others felt like electricity running through his body. One machine made sounds that hurt so much Jake thought his ears might bleed. But Jake had been trained for this. During his military service, he had learned how to resist interrogation. He focused on false information, letting the aliens see fake memories about human defenses. He made himself think about bases that didn't exist, and weapons that were just his imagination. When the session finally ended, Jake was exhausted. The guards dragged him back to his cell and threw him onto the hard bench. His head felt like it was full of broken glass, but he had won this round. The aliens thought they were getting real information, but everything they had pulled from his mind was false. Meanwhile, far away at the edge of the star system, Captain Roy Martinez stood on the bridge of the Nightfall. The ship hung in space, like a ghost, its stealth systems making it invisible to enemy sensors. "Any word from the reconnaissance team?" Martinez asked his communications officer. "Nothing yet, Captain," came the reply. "But we detected weapons fire in the target area 3 days ago." Martinez clenched his fists. He knew what that meant. His people were in trouble, probably captured or dead. But he couldn't risk the entire ship to find out. "Captain," said Danny Garcia, one of his best pilots, "we should go in and look for survivors." "With what?" Martinez replied. "We're one ship against an entire alien fleet. We'd be destroyed before we could help anyone." Kate, Morgan, the weapons specialist, stepped forward. "Commander Sullivan wouldn't abandon us if we were captured." "I know," Martinez said quietly. "But Jake would also want us to be smart about this. We need more information before we can act." The captain turned to his sensor operator. "Keep scanning. I want to know everything about those alien ships, their weapons," their shields, their weaknesses. If our people are alive, we're going to get them back. Back on the alien ship, Jake was eating his evening meal when Commander Zeth Kai visited his cell. The alien commander looked pleased with himself. "Your interrogation went very well today," Zeth Kai said. "We learned much about human military capabilities." Jake continued eating without looking up. The food still tasted terrible, but he needed to keep his strength up. "Did you know that your species is considered a joke by most civilized races?" the alien continued. "You've only had space travel for a few decades. We have been exploring the galaxy for millennia." Zeth Kai moved closer to the energy field that kept Jake locked in his cell. "Your people think they can compete with the great powers of the galaxy, but you are children playing with weapons you don't understand. When we finish our invasion of human space, your species will be nothing more than slaves and entertainment costs." Finally looked up at the alien commander. "You talk a lot for someone who needed an entire fleet to capture one human." For a moment, Zeth Kai's red eyes flared with anger. Then he made that grinding laugh sound again. "Enjoy your humor while you can, human. Tomorrow we will dig deeper into your mind, and soon we will use everything you tell us to destroy your home world." After the alien left, Jake lay down on the hard bench and stared at the glowing ceiling. He had to stay strong. Somewhere out there, his friends were planning a rescue. He just had to survive long enough for them to find him. The aliens thought they understood humans. They thought humans were weak and primitive. But they were about to learn that capturing a human was very different from breaking one. Jake closed his eyes and began planning. Every piece of information he gathered about this ship, every guard rotation he memorized, every weakness he discovered, it would all be useful when the time came to fight back. The Ketharon had made a mistake. They had given him time to think, time to plan, and time to prepare. Soon they would realize that humans were much more dangerous than they looked. Jake had been pretending to break for the past week. Every day the aliens brought him to the interrogation room. Every day he gave them a little more false information, making it seem like their torture was working. Today was different. "Commander." Zeth Kai seemed excited about something as the guards brought Jake to a new room. This one was larger, with windows that showed the vast darkness of space. Jake could see other alien ships flying in formation outside. "Today you meet some very important visitors," Zeth Kai announced. "Leaders from other Ketharan fleets have come to see the human prisoner." 3 more aliens entered the room. They were even larger than Zeth Kai, and their skin was covered in golden markings that seemed to move on their own. One of them spoke in the grinding alien language, and Zeth Kai translated. "Fleet Commander Vexmore wants to know if all humans are as pathetic as you," Zeth Kai said with amusement. Jake hung his head and let his shoulders slump, playing the part of a broken prisoner. But his eyes stayed alert, watching everything. The golden-marked alien walked around Jake slowly, examining him like he was looking at a strange animal in a zoo. The alien's 4 red eyes studied every detail of Jake's appearance. "Tell them about human weapons," Zeth Kai ordered. Jake pretended to hesitate, then began describing the fake military bases he had been feeding the aliens for days. He talked about imaginary superweapons and defense systems that didn't exist. The aliens listened carefully, making notes on their strange devices. While he spoke, Jake counted the number of guards in the room. He noticed the locations of the doors and windows. He studied the aliens' weapons and armor, looking for weak spots. One of the visiting commanders said something that made all the aliens laugh. Jake didn't need a translation to know they were making fun of humans. "Commander Thekaval thinks you're Species would make good pets, Zethkai explained. Perhaps we will keep some of you alive for entertainment after we conquer your worlds. After the meeting, the guards took Jake to different quarters. Instead of the small cell he was now in, a larger room with an actual bed and a window. The security seemed lighter too, with only one guard posted outside his door. The aliens were getting careless. They thought he was beaten and no longer dangerous. That night, Jake began his real work. When the guard changed shifts, he had a few minutes alone. He used this time to examine his new room carefully. The window was made of the same crystal material as the ship's hull, but it had tiny flaws in it. The door's locking mechanism was more complex than his old cell, but it was still alien technology he might be able to figure out. Most importantly, there was a ventilation grate near the ceiling. It was small, but Jake thought he might be able to fit through it if he removed the cover. Over the next few days, Jake's treatment continued to improve. The aliens moved him to even better quarters and reduced his guard detail to just one alien during the day and none at night. Commander Zethkai even brought him better food, claiming it was a reward for his cooperation. You see how much easier life can be when you work with us instead of against us? Zethkai said during one of their daily conversations. Jake nodded weakly. I just want the pain to stop. Of course you do, the alien commander replied. And it will, as long as you continue to be helpful. During these meetings, Jake learned valuable information about the alien fleet. Zethkai liked to brag about Ketharan power and superiority. He told Jake that their fleet consisted of 12 massive ships, each carrying thousands of warriors. We are heading to join the main invasion force, Zethkai revealed one day. Soon, 50 fleets like ours will attack your human colonies simultaneously. Your people will not know what hit them. Jake also learned about the ship's layout from conversations with the aliens. They talked freely around him now, treating him like a broken tool rather than a dangerous enemy. He discovered the locations of the engine rooms, weapons systems, and command centers. The aliens' biggest weakness was their arrogance. They couldn't imagine that a primitive human could pose any threat to their advanced technology. When their sensors occasionally detected strange readings near their fleet, they dismissed them as cosmic radiation or equipment malfunctions. Meanwhile, on the Nightfall, Captain Martinez was having his own problems. His crew was getting restless after days of following the alien fleet from a distance. Captain, we need to do something, Danny Garcia said during a crew meeting. Commander Sullivan has been their prisoner for over a week. I know, Martinez replied, but charging in blindly will just get us all killed. Kate Morgan slammed her fist on the table. So we just leave him there? We're not leaving anyone, Martinez said firmly, but we need a plan that actually has a chance of working. Chief Engineer Sam Hayes spoke up from his corner of the room. I've been studying their ship's energy signatures. I think I found something interesting. He brought up a display showing the alien fleet formation. Their shields are incredibly strong, but they have to lower them occasionally to vent excess energy. There's a pattern to it. How often? Martinez asked. Every 6 hours for about 30 seconds, Sam replied. It's not much time, but if we hit them at exactly the right moment, we'd still be outnumbered 12-1, Kate pointed out. Not if we're smart about it, Martinez said, studying the display. Sam, how long would you need to modify our weapons for maximum damage? Give me another day, the engineer answered. Back on the alien ship, Jake had finally managed to loosen the ventilation grate in his room. It had taken him 3 nights of careful work, using a small piece of metal he had broken off from his bed frame. During the day, he continued his act of being a cooperative prisoner. Zeth-Kai brought him to more meetings with alien officers, showing him off like a trophy. Jake used these opportunities to learn more about the ship's security systems and crew rotations. He also discovered something interesting about Ketharan psychology. The aliens were so convinced of their own superiority that they couldn't imagine being outsmarted by a human. Even when Jake asked questions about their technology, they answered freely, thinking he was just curious rather than gathering intelligence. "Your ship is amazing," Jake said to one of the guards one day. "How do you keep it running with such a large crew?" The guard was happy to explain the automated systems that controlled life support, navigation, and weapons. He even mentioned the manual override controls that could shut down major systems in an emergency. By the end of his 2nd week in captivity, Jake had a complete mental map of the alien ship. He knew where the important systems were located, how the security worked, and when the guard shifts changed. He had also identified several ways to cause serious damage to the ship if he could get free. Most importantly, he had learned that the aliens were planning to reach human space in just a few more days. Once they joined with the main invasion fleet, thousands of innocent people would die. It was time to stop playing the broken prisoner. It was time to remind the Ketharan why humans had survived and thrived on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. That night, as Jake lay in his comfortable bed in his improved quarters, he smiled for the first time since his capture. Tomorrow, he would begin showing these aliens what humans were really capable of. The Ketharan thought they had won. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Jake woke up before dawn on his 15th day of captivity. Today would be the day he made his move. Through his window, he could see a distant star growing brighter. According to what he had overheard from the aliens, that star was Sol, the sun that warmed Earth and all the human colonies. The alien fleet would reach the outer colonies in less than 24 hours. Jake went through his normal routine, eating breakfast and pretending to be the same broken prisoner the aliens expected. But inside, he was going over his escape plan one more time. Every detail had to be perfect. When Commander Zeth-Kai came for their daily meeting, Jake was ready. "You seem different today, human," the alien commander observed as they walked to the interrogation room. "I'm tired," Jake replied, keeping his voice weak and defeated. "The dreams. I keep seeing my home burning." Zeth-Kai made his grinding laugh sound. "Soon those dreams will be reality. We will reach your colonies tomorrow, and the real war will begin." In the meeting room, Zeth-Kai showed Jake a display of the human star system. Red markers indicated where the Ketharan planned to attack first. "These outer colonies have almost no defenses," Zeth-Kai explained. "Millions of your people live there, thinking they are safe. They have no idea what is coming." Jake stared at the display, memorizing the attack plans. Even if he couldn't escape, maybe he could find a way to warn someone. "Tell me about the defenses around your home world," Zeth-Kai demanded. Jake began reciting more false information about Earth's military forces. He described imaginary space stations and fake fleets, making everything sound impressive but ultimately hopeless against the Ketharan armada. While he talked, Jake noticed something important. There were fewer guards in the room today, and they seemed distracted. The aliens were getting ready for battle and had less attention to spare for watching one prisoner. After the meeting, they took him back to his quarters as usual. But this time, Jake was ready for what came next. At exactly 1400 hours ship time during the guard shift change, Jake put his plan into action. He had been watching the timing for days, and he knew he had exactly 3 minutes when no one would be watching his room. Jake quickly removed the loose ventilation grate and pulled himself up into the narrow air duct. The space was tight, barely wide enough for his shoulders, but he had practiced this movement in his mind dozens of times. The air ducts were part of the ship's life support system, running throughout the massive vessel like metal arteries. Jake had studied their layout from conversations with the guards and his observations during his trips around the ship. He crawled through the darkness, following the path he had memorized. Left at the first junction, straight for 50 meters, then right toward the ship's central core. The metal was cold against his skin, and the air smelled of ozone and alien machinery. After 20 minutes of careful movement, Jake reached his first target. Below him was one of the ship's main power distribution centers. He had learned about it from the helpful guard who liked to brag about Ketharan technology. Jake quietly removed another grate and dropped down into the power center. The room was filled with humming machines and blinking lights. Most importantly, it was empty. The aliens had so much confidence in their security that they didn't bother guarding their internal systems. Using techniques he had learned in military engineering classes, Jake began sabotaging the power grid. He didn't want to shut everything down immediately. That would alert the aliens too quickly. Instead, he created time-delayed failures that would cascade through the system over the next few hours. He pulled specific circuit boards from their housings and bent them just enough to cause malfunctions. He loosened connections that would fail under stress. He even planted small pieces of metal debris in places where they would cause short circuits later. When he was finished, the power center looked normal. But Jake knew that within a few hours, major systems throughout the ship would start failing in ways the aliens wouldn't be able to quickly fix. Meanwhile, on the Nightfall, Captain Martinez was making final preparations for the rescue attempt. His crew had worked around the clock to modify their weapons and plan their attack. "Sam, are the weapon modifications ready?" Martinez asked his chief engineer. "All done, Captain," Sam Hayes replied. "We won't be able to sustain a long fight, but the first few shots will pack a punch they won't expect." "Kate, what about our targeting data?" Kate Morgan pulled up a display showing the alien fleet formation. "We've identified the flagship based on communication patterns and escort positions. That's where Commander Sullivan is being held. Danny, can you get us in close enough for the extraction?" Danny Garcia grinned. "Just tell me when and where, Captain. I'll put us right next to their hull if I have to." Dr. Alex Ryan, the ship's medical officer, spoke up from his corner. "I have medical supplies ready for when we get Jake back. Depending on what they've done to him, he'll be fine," Martinez said firmly. "Jake's tougher than these aliens realize." Back on the alien ship, Jake had moved to his second target, the navigation control center. This one was trickier because it had 2 guards posted outside. But Jake had planned for this too. He waited in the air duct above the corridor until 1 guard left for his meal break. Then he created a distraction by dropping a small piece of metal down a side passage. When the remaining guard went to investigate the noise, Jake slipped into the navigation center. The alien navigation system was more complex than their power grid, but Jake had been studying it for weeks. He didn't try to change their course. That would be noticed immediately. Instead, he made subtle alterations to their sensor calibrations and communication frequencies. When the aliens tried to coordinate with their invasion fleet, they would find their signals slightly out of sync. Their sensors would show false readings at critical moments. Nothing dramatic enough to cause immediate alarm, but enough to create confusion during a battle. Jake's third stop was the Weapons Control Center. This was the most heavily guarded area he had attempted to reach, but he had saved it for last because it would have the biggest impact. He spent an hour crawling through service tunnels and maintenance shafts, avoiding patrols and security sensors. When he finally reached the weapons center, he discovered it was protected by an energy field similar to the one that had kept him locked in his original cell. But Jake had learned something during his interrogations. The aliens' energy fields had a weakness. They were designed to keep people in or out, but they didn't stop small objects moving at high velocity. Jake found a maintenance panel near the weapons center and began working on the power couplings. If he could create a brief power surge at exactly the right moment, the energy field would flicker for just a few seconds. It would be enough time to get inside. While he worked, Jake thought about his friends on the Nightfall. He knew Captain Martinez was out there somewhere, planning a rescue. Jake just had to create enough chaos to give them a chance. The power surge worked perfectly. The energy field disappeared for 3 seconds, and Jake slipped into the weapons control center. Now, he was in the heart of the alien ship's offensive capabilities. The weapon systems were beautiful in their complexity. But Jake wasn't here to admire alien engineering. He was here to make sure these weapons couldn't be used against innocent human civilians. Jake began the most delicate sabotage of his mission. He couldn't disable the weapons completely. That would be noticed too quickly. Instead, he programmed subtle failures into their targeting systems and power regulators. When the aliens tried to fire on human colonies, their shots would miss by crucial margins. As he worked, alarms suddenly began sounding throughout the ship. Jake's earlier sabotage was starting to take effect. Power systems were failing, navigation was reporting errors, and confusion was spreading through the alien crew. It was time for the final phase of his plan. Jake had to reach the ship's communication center and try to warn the human colonies about the coming attack. But first, he had to survive the massive manhunt that was about to begin. The aliens had finally realized that their broken prisoner was much more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The alarms were getting louder now, echoing through every corridor of the massive alien ship. Jake could hear the grinding voices of Keth-Aaron crew members shouting orders and running through the passages below him. His sabotage was working better than he had hoped. Jake crawled through the air ducts toward his final target, the ship's main communication center. If he could reach it, he might be able to send a warning to the human colonies. Even a few hours of advance notice could save millions of lives, but the aliens were no longer careless. Security teams were checking every room, every corridor, every possible hiding place. Jake could hear them getting closer to his position in the ventilation system. He reached a junction in the air ducts and stopped to listen. Heavy footsteps were coming from both directions. The aliens had figured out he was using the ventilation system to move around their ship. Jake made a quick decision. Instead of trying to reach the communication center, he dropped down into a maintenance room filled with spare parts and repair equipment. He needed weapons and tools if he was going to survive the next few hours. The room contained items he didn't recognize, but Jake was good at improvising. He found metal rods that could serve as clubs, electrical components that might work as explosives, and even some alien tools that looked sharp enough to cut through armor. Just as he finished gathering supplies, the door to the maintenance room exploded inward. 3 Catharan guards rushed in, their weapons raised and ready to fire. Jake was ready for them. He threw one of his improvised explosive devices at the first guard. The alien's armor protected him from serious injury, but the explosion knocked him backward into his companions. Jake jumped over a workbench and tackled the second guard. The alien was stronger than any human, but Jake had surprise on his side. He managed to grab the guard's weapon and turn it on the third alien before the creature could react. The fight was brutal and quick. When it was over, Jake had acquired better weapons and a partial set of alien armor. More importantly, he had proven something to himself. Humans could fight these aliens and win, even without superior technology. But the sounds of the fight had attracted more guards. Jake could hear them coming down the corridor. He grabbed everything useful he could carry and headed for the nearest air duct. On the bridge of the alien flagship, Commander Zethkai was furious. His red eyes blazed as he studied the damage reports, coming in from all over his ship. "How is this possible?" he roared at his officers. "One human prisoner has crippled half our systems." "Commander," one of his subordinates reported nervously, "power is down in sections 7 through 12. Navigation is showing false readings, and our weapons targeting system keeps losing lock." Zethkai slammed his 4 fists on the command console. "Find him! Tear this ship apart if you have to, but find that human!" Far away at the edge of the star system, Captain Martinez received the signal he had been waiting for. The alien flagship's shields had just flickered, the first sign that Jake's sabotage was working. "All hands, battle stations," Martinez announced, over the ship's communication system. "We're going in." The Nightfall dropped its stealth systems and accelerated toward the alien fleet at maximum speed. On the bridge, every crew member was focused on their task. "Danny, take us straight for the flagship," Martinez ordered. "Aye, Captain," Danny Garcia replied, his hands dancing over the flight controls. "Time to intercept. 4 minutes. Kate, are the weapons ready?" Kate Morgan checked her displays one more time. "Modified plasma torpedoes loaded and ready. We'll have maybe 6 shots before they adapt to our frequency." "Sam, how are the engines holding up?" "So far, so good, Captain," Sam Hayes called from the engine room. "But we're pushing beyond safety limits. I can give you maybe 10 minutes at this speed before we risk a core breach." Martinez nodded. 10 minutes would have to be enough. Back on the alien ship, Jake had managed to reach the communications center, but it was heavily guarded. 6 aliens stood watch outside the door, and more were patrolling the nearby corridors. Jake studied the situation from his hiding spot in a supply closet. A direct assault would be suicide, even with his stolen weapons. He needed a different approach. That's when the ship shuddered violently, throwing several of the guards to the floor. Emergency lights began flashing, and new alarms joined the chaos already filling the air. The nightfall had arrived. Jake smiled as he recognized the distinctive sound of human plasma weapons hitting the alien ship's hull. Captain Martinez had found him. The alien guards were confused and divided. Some ran toward the weapon systems to help defend the ship. Others stayed at their posts, unsure what to do. Jake used the distraction to his advantage. He threw 2 improvised grenades down the corridor, creating explosions that scattered the remaining guards. Then he charged through the smoke and confusion, fighting his way into the communication center. The room was filled with alien communication equipment, but Jake didn't need to understand how it worked. He just needed to cause enough damage to disrupt the invasion fleet's coordination. He began smashing control panels and severing cable connections. Every system he destroyed would make it harder for the aliens to coordinate their attack on the human colonies. Outside the ship, the Nightfall was locked in desperate combat with the entire alien fleet. The small human vessel twisted and turned between the massive enemy ships, its modified weapons striking at critical targets. Direct hit on their shield generator, Kate reported. Their defenses are down for 30 seconds. Danny, get us to their hangar bay, Martinez ordered. Working on it, Captain, Danny replied, spinning the ship through a barrage of alien weapons fire. Inside the alien flagship, Jake had reached the ship's central computer core. This was the brain that controlled everything from life support to weapons targeting. If he could damage it enough, the entire ship would be crippled, but Commander Zethkai was waiting for him. So the broken human shows his true nature, the alien commander said, standing between Jake and the computer core. You have caused much trouble, but it ends here. Zethkai was bigger and stronger than Jake, but the human had advantages too. He was faster and more desperate. Most importantly, he was fighting for something the alien couldn't understand. Not just his own life, but the lives of millions of innocent people. The fight was vicious. Zethkai's 4 arms gave him multiple angles of attack, but Jake used his smaller size to stay mobile. He rolled under the alien's swings and struck at weak points in the creature's armor. When Zethkai grabbed Jake with 2 of his arms, the human used one of his stolen alien weapons to blast the commander's legs. When the alien fell, Jake grabbed a heavy piece of equipment and brought it down on Zethkai's head. The alien commander stopped moving. Jake limped to the computer core and began his final act of sabotage. He pulled out every circuit board he could reach and smashed every control panel within arm's length. Warning lights flashed as critical systems throughout the ship began failing. That's when he heard the most beautiful sound in the galaxy. Captain, Martinez's voice coming over a stolen alien communicator. Jake, if you can hear this, we're in the hangar bay. Time to go home. Jake grabbed the communicator and ran toward the hangar bay as fast as his injured legs could carry him. Behind him, the alien ship was tearing itself apart as his sabotage reached its final stage. He reached the hangar bay to find the Nightfall hovering just inside the massive doors. The ship's weapons were firing constantly, holding off waves of alien defenders. Jake could see his friends through the ship's windows. Amy Carter was at the pilot controls, keeping the ship steady despite the chaos around them. Tony Brooks was manning the weapons, his face grim with concentration. Jump! Captain Martinez's voice called over the communicator. Jake didn't hesitate. He leaped across the gap between the alien ship and his home, trusting his crew to catch him. Strong hands pulled him into the Nightfall's airlock. Dr. Alex Ryan was already there with medical supplies, checking Jake for injuries. Welcome back, Commander, Martinez said with a grin. Ready to get out of here? More than ready, Captain, Jake replied. The Nightfall shot out of the alien hangar bay just as the massive ship's power core finally gave up. Behind them, the flagship of the Ketharan invasion fleet was dead in space, its systems failing one by one. The other alien ships were in chaos, trying to rescue their commander's vessel while also pursuing the escaping human ship. But they had underestimated the Nightfall's crew just as badly as they had underestimated Jake. As the small human ship disappeared into the darkness between the stars, Jake allowed himself to relax for the first time in weeks. They had won this battle, but more importantly, they had shown the galaxy something crucial. Humans were not the weak, primitive species their enemies believed them to be. The Ketharan had learned too late that capturing a human was very different from breaking one. The Nightfall raced through space at maximum speed, its engines glowing white-hot from the strain. Behind them, 8 massive Ketharan ships were giving chase, their crystal hulls blazing with angry weapon fire. Jake sat in the medical bay while Dr. Alex Ryan checked his injuries. His body was covered in bruises and cuts from his weeks in captivity, but his mind was sharp and focused. "How bad is it, Doc?" Jake asked as Ryan ran a scanner over his ribs. "You'll live," Ryan replied. "Some cracked ribs, dehydration and exhaustion, nothing that won't heal with time?" "We might not have time," Jake said, wincing as another blast from the alien ships shook the nightfall. Captain Martinez's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All hands, prepare for evasive maneuvers. They're gaining on us." Jake stood up despite Ryan's protests. "I need to get to the bridge." "You need to rest," the doctor argued. "I need to help my crew," Jake replied firmly. On the bridge, the situation was desperate. The alien ships were faster than the Nightfall and had much more powerful weapons. Only Danny Garcia's brilliant piloting was keeping them alive. "Captain," Kate Morgan reported from the weapons station, "we're down to 20% power on the plasma torpedoes. We can't keep this up much longer." "How long until we reach the asteroid field?" Martinez asked. Amy Carter checked her navigation display. 15 minutes at current speed." "We'll never make it," Tony Brooks said from the engineering station. "The engines are running too hot. We'll have a core breach in 10 minutes. That's when Jake arrived on the bridge. Despite his injuries, his presence immediately lifted the crew's spirits. "Report," Jake said simply. Martinez quickly explained their situation. They were being chased by 8 alien ships. Their engines were failing, and they were still 10 minutes away from the asteroid field where they might find cover. Jake studied the tactical display, his mind working through possibilities. Then he noticed something the others had missed. "Kate, do we still have those mining charges Sam installed last month?" Kate checked her inventory. "Yes, sir. 4 charges, normally used for asteroid mining. And they're designed to create electromagnetic pulses when they explode?" "That's right," Sam Hayes confirmed over the comm system from the engine room. "Why?" Jake smiled for the first time since his rescue. "Because I have an idea, Danny. I need you to take us through that debris field ahead, the one from the destroyed alien ship." "Sir, that's going to slow us down even more," Danny protested. "Trust me," Jake said. As the Nightfall entered the debris field from Jake's earlier battle, the alien ships followed closely. Pieces of destroyed spacecraft floated all around them, some as large as buildings. "Now, Kate," Jake ordered, "drop the mining charges, but don't detonate them yet." Kate released the 4 charges, and they floated among the debris like tiny metal spheres. The alien ships continued their pursuit, not knowing what the humans had planned. "Danny, take us behind that large piece of wreckage," Jake commanded. The Nightfall disappeared behind a chunk of alien hull plating just as the pursuing ships entered the debris field. "Now, Kate, detonate all charges simultaneously." The 4 mining charges exploded at once, creating a massive electromagnetic pulse that rippled through the debris field. The pulse interfered with the alien ship's sensors and communication systems, blinding them temporarily. "All power to engines!" Jake shouted. "Get us out of here while they're confused." The Nightfall shot out of the debris field at full speed, while the alien ships stumbled around blindly, unable to see or communicate with each other. By the time their systems came back online, the human ship was nowhere to be found. But Jake knew this was only a temporary solution. The aliens would eventually find them again, and next time they would be ready for human tricks. "We need to get word to Earth about the invasion fleet," Jake told Martinez. "Those 12 ships were just the advance force. Zethkai said 50. Fleets were planning to attack human space. 50 fleets? Amy gasped. That's hundreds of ships. The outer colonies don't stand a chance, Tony added grimly. Martinez nodded. We need to reach the nearest human base and warn them, but first we have to make sure we're not being followed. For the next 6 hours, the Nightfall played a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the asteroids and debris fields of the outer system. The alien ships had split up to search for them, which made them less dangerous individually, but harder to avoid completely. Jake used his knowledge of Ketharan tactics, gained during his captivity, to predict where the enemy ships would search next. He guided Danny through routes that avoided the alien patrol patterns. They're predictable, Jake explained to the crew. The Ketharan have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. They expect their enemies to run in straight lines and fight head-on battles. But humans don't fight that way, Kate observed. Exactly, Jake agreed. We adapt, we improvise, we use their expectations against them. During a brief rest period, Jake met with the senior crew in the ship's small conference room. The weight of what they had learned was heavy on everyone's minds. The aliens have been planning this invasion for months, Jake reported. They've studied our defenses and identified our weak points, but they've also underestimated our capabilities. What do you mean? Martinez asked. They think humans are primitive and predictable. They expect us to panic when attacked and fight desperately without coordination. They don't understand human military doctrine or our ability to work together under pressure. Lisa Hayes, who had been monitoring alien communications, spoke up. Sir, I've been analyzing the transmissions we intercepted. The invasion force is supposed to meet at a staging area near the Proxima system in 3 days. That gives us a small window, Jake said. If we can reach Earth Command and warn them, we might be able to prepare an ambush instead of just defending. It would be the first time in galactic history that humans took the offensive in a space war, Martinez noted. Then it's time to make history, Jake replied. Dr. Ryan entered the conference room with a concerned expression. I hate to interrupt, but I've been analyzing the biological samples we collected from the alien ship. Their atmosphere is toxic to humans, but more importantly, they're vulnerable to certain electromagnetic frequencies. What kind of frequencies? Kate asked. The same kind our communication systems use, Ryan explained. If we could amplify our radio transmissions, we might be able to disrupt their nervous systems. Jake leaned forward with interest. How much amplification would we need? A lot more than our ship can generate, Ryan admitted. But if we could reach a communication relay station, the one at Beacon Station, Amy said suddenly. It's only 6 hours away, and it has the most powerful transmitter in this sector. Martinez stood up. Then that's our destination. We warn Earth, and we figure out how to turn our communication technology into a weapon. As the nightfall changed, course toward Beacon Station, Jake looked out at the stars and thought about the battle ahead. The aliens had made a mistake when they captured him. They had given humanity advance warning of their invasion. But more than that, they had shown humans exactly what they were up against. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was finding ways to win against impossible odds. The chase was far from over, but now the Nightfall crew had a plan. They would reach Beacon Station, warn Earth about the coming invasion, and help prepare humanity's response. The Ketharan were about to learn that capturing a human prisoner had been the biggest mistake of their long military history. Beacon Station appeared on their screens like a metal flower blooming in the darkness of space. The communication relay station was one of humanity's most important installations, sending messages across dozens of star systems. But as the nightfall approached, Jake could see that something was wrong. "Danny, take us in slow," Jake ordered. "Kate, Scan for life signs. Kate worked her sensors carefully. I'm reading 43 human life signs aboard the station. That's normal crew complement. But there's something else. What kind of something else? Martinez asked. Unknown energy signatures. They don't match any human technology I know about. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Aliens. They beat us here. Through the view screen, they could see Beacon Station's massive communication array. The giant dish that normally sent messages across the galaxy was dark and silent. Sir, Lisa Hayes reported from the communication station, I'm not receiving any signals from the station. They're not responding to our hails. But the life signs show the crew is still alive, Dr. Ryan observed. Alive, but probably prisoners, Jake said grimly. Just like I was. Captain Martinez studied the tactical display. We can't just leave them there, and we need that communication array to warn Earth about the invasion. It's a trap, Tony Brooks said from his engineering station. They're waiting for us to try a rescue. Jake nodded. Probably. But we don't have a choice. Earth has to be warned, and those are our people on that station. For the next hour, they studied Beacon Station from a safe distance. Jake used his knowledge of Keitharan tactics to identify likely ambush positions and guard placements. There, he said, pointing to a section of the station's hull. See those energy readings? That's where they've positioned their boarding craft. How? Many, do you think? Martinez asked. Maybe 20 or 30 aliens. Enough to control the station, but not enough for a major battle. Amy Carter had been studying the station's layout. If we could get aboard through the maintenance airlocks, we might be able to avoid their main force. And then what? Kate asked. We're still outnumbered. Jake smiled. Then we use what Dr. Ryan discovered about their vulnerability to electromagnetic frequencies. The plan they developed was risky but simple. A small team would board the station through the maintenance section while the nightfall created a distraction. Once aboard, they would try to free the human prisoners and turn the communication array into a weapon against the aliens. I'm going, Jake announced. You're still injured, Dr. Ryan protested. I know how these aliens think, Jake replied, and I know how to fight them. Martinez selected Amy Carter and Tony Brooks to accompany Jake. They were the best at moving quietly and working with unfamiliar technology. As the three-person team prepared their equipment, Kate Morgan worked on modifying their communication devices. If Dr. Ryan was right about alien vulnerability to electromagnetic frequencies, their radios might become weapons. I've boosted the power output by 300%, Kate explained. Point these at any aliens and press the emergency broadcast button. It should disrupt their nervous systems long enough for you to escape or fight back. Jake tested the modified radio. It felt heavier than normal and made a slight humming sound when activated. Remember, Jake told his team as they prepared to leave the nightfall. We're not trying to win a battle. We just need to free the prisoners and get that communication array working long enough to warn Earth. The maintenance airlock was exactly where Jake expected it to be. The aliens had posted no guards here because they thought it was too small and difficult to use. They were wrong. Jake, Amy, and Tony moved through the station's service corridors, like shadows. The layout was similar to other human installations, so they knew where to find the main control room and crew quarters. They found the first group of human prisoners in what had been the station's cafeteria. 12 technicians and officers were sitting on the floor with their hands bound. 2 Keitharan guards watched them with obvious boredom. Jake signaled for Amy and Tony to circle around behind the guards while he created a distraction. He threw a small piece of metal down a side corridor, making a noise that got the aliens' attention. When the guards moved to investigate, Amy and Tony struck from behind. The modified radios worked perfectly. The electromagnetic pulses from the devices made the aliens collapse instantly, their nervous systems overwhelmed. "Are you all right?" Jake asked the prisoners as Amy and Tony cut their bonds. "Commander Sullivan!" one of the technicians exclaimed. "We thought you were dead." "Not yet," Jake replied, "but we need to move fast. Where are the rest of your people?" The station commander, Captain Helen Davis, was being held separately in the control room. The aliens wanted her to help them understand human communication systems. "There are 6 more guards in the control room," one of the freed prisoners reported. "And their leader is interrogating Captain Davis." Jake divided his team. Amy would take half the freed prisoners to secure the communication array, while Tony and Jake went after Captain Davis. The control room was at the heart of Beacon Station. Through the windows, Jake could see Captain Davis sitting in a chair while a tall Ketharan commander asked her questions. She was refusing to cooperate, just as Jake had done during his own captivity. 6 guards, plus the commander," Jake whispered to Tony. "The modified radios will help, but we need to be smart about this." They waited until the alien commander became frustrated with Davis's refusal to answer questions. When he turned away from her to consult with his subordinates, Jake and Tony struck. The electromagnetic pulse from their radios affected all 6 guards simultaneously. The aliens collapsed, their complex nervous systems unable to handle the interference. But the commander was different. Larger and apparently more resilient, he recovered quickly from the pulse and turned to face the humans with rage in his 4 red eyes. "More humans," the alien commander snarled in accented English. "You cannot stop the great invasion." "Watch us," Jake replied, raising his modified radio for another pulse. But the alien commander was ready this time. He lunged forward faster than Jake expected, knocking the radio from his hands. Tony tried to help, but the alien's 4 arms gave him a huge advantage in close combat. That's when Captain Davis proved that she hadn't been sitting helplessly. While the alien was focused on Jake and Tony, she had been working on her bonds. Now free, she grabbed one of the fallen guard's weapons and pointed it at the alien commander. "Surrender," she ordered. The alien commander looked at the weapon in her hands and laughed. "Human female! You do not even know how to operate Ketharan technology." Davis smiled. "You're right. I don't know how to operate it safely." She pulled the trigger. The weapon exploded in her hands, sending energy feedback through the alien commander's nervous system. Both Davis and the alien collapsed, but only Davis got back up. "Nice bluff," Jake said, helping the station commander to her feet. "Who says it was a bluff?" Davis replied with a grin. Meanwhile, Amy had successfully reached the communication array with her team of freed prisoners. The massive transmitter was more powerful than anything on the Nightfall, capable of sending messages across half the galaxy instantly. "Jake," Amy's voice came over the radio. "We've got control of the array. What's our message?" Jake thought quickly. The message had to be clear, urgent, and contain enough information to help Earth prepare for the invasion. "Send this to Earth Command. Ketharan invasion fleet of 50 fleets approaching human space. Expected arrival in 48 hours. Enemy vulnerable to high-powered electromagnetic pulses. Commander Sullivan reporting from Beacon Station. Prepare all defenses and modify communication arrays for weapons use." As Amy sent the message racing toward Earth at faster-than-light speeds, Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Humanity would have warning. It might not be enough time to stop the invasion, but it was enough to prepare a defense. "Message sent," Amy reported. "Earth Command confirms receipt and is forwarding to all colonial governments. But their celebration was short-lived. Kate Morgan's voice crackled over the radio from the nightfall. "Jake, we have problems. Long-range sensors are showing multiple alien ships approaching. Looks like reinforcements for the station." Jake looked out the control room windows at the nightfall floating near the station. His ship was fast, but it couldn't outrun an entire alien fleet while carrying all the station personnel. "How many ships?" he asked. "At least 6, maybe more," Kate replied. "They'll be here in 30 minutes. Jake made a command decision. "All station personnel evacuate to the nightfall immediately. We're leaving." "What about the station?" "Captain," Davis asked. Jake looked at the massive communication array that had just saved human civilization. "Set the reactor to overload. When those alien ships arrive, they're going to get a very warm welcome." As the last of the station personnel boarded the nightfall, Jake took one final look at Beacon Station. The installation had served humanity well for over 20 years. Now it would serve one last time as a weapon against the alien invaders. Nightfall pulled away from the station just as the first alien ships appeared on the horizon. 30 seconds later, Beacon Station's reactor detonated, taking 3 Ketharan vessels with it in a brilliant explosion that lit up the darkness of space. But Jake's attention was already focused on the future. Earth had been warned, and humanity would. 2 days later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Command ship Valiant, watching the largest space battle in human history unfold before him. The Ketharan invasion fleet had arrived exactly when Jake predicted, but they found humanity, ready and waiting. 50 alien fleets had expected to face scattered, panicked human defenders. Instead, they encountered a coordinated defense force armed with a new weapon that turned their own advanced technology against them. "All communication. Arrays are charged and ready," reported Admiral Sarah Mitchell, the commander of Earth's defense forces. "Your intelligence about their electromagnetic vulnerability was exactly right, Commander." Jake nodded, watching the tactical display. Every human ship, space station, and orbital platform had been equipped with modified communication systems. When activated simultaneously, they would create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disrupt alien nervous systems across light years of space. "There," Jake pointed to the display. "The Ketharan are forming their traditional attack formation. They still think they're fighting a primitive species." Captain Martinez, now serving as Jake's second-in-command, studied the alien formations. "They're not adapting to our tactics at all." "Why should they?" Jake replied. "They've been conquering galaxies for thousands of years using the same strategies. They can't imagine that humans might do something different." The alien fleet was massive. Hundreds of crystal ships moved through space in perfect geometric patterns, their weapons charging for what they expected to be an easy victory. At the center of the formation was a command ship twice the size of any vessel Jake had ever seen. "That's their fleet command," Jake observed. "If we can disable that ship, the rest of their fleet will lose coordination." Admiral Mitchell activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All units, this is Admiral Mitchell. Initiate electromagnetic pulse in 30 seconds. Remember, we only get one surprise attack. Make it count." Jake felt the familiar tension that came before battle. But this time was different. This time, humanity wasn't just defending itself. They were showing the galaxy that humans belonged. "Among the stars. 10 seconds, Admiral Mitchell announced. Jake watched the alien fleet continue its approach, completely unaware of what was about to happen. 5 seconds, the Ketharan ships began charging their weapons, preparing to destroy. The Human Defense Force. Execute. Every human ship, station, and platform activated their modified communication arrays simultaneously. The electromagnetic pulse that resulted was unlike anything ever seen in galactic history. It swept through the alien fleet like an invisible storm, disrupting electronics and overwhelming alien nervous systems. The effect was immediate and devastating. Half the Catharan ships simply stopped moving, their crews unconscious or dead. Others spun out of control as their navigation systems failed. The perfect alien formation collapsed into chaos. Direct hit on the command ship, Kate Morgan reported from her station aboard the Valiant. Their entire command structure is offline. But Jake knew the battle wasn't over. The electromagnetic pulse was a one-time weapon. Once the aliens recovered from the surprise, they would adapt their defenses. All ships, advance and engage, Admiral Mitchell ordered. Hit them while they're confused. The human fleet surged forward, taking advantage of the chaos in the alien ranks. Ships that had been hidden behind asteroids and space debris revealed themselves, catching the aliens in a carefully planned crossfire. Jake watched as Danny Garcia, now piloting a squadron of fighters, led a brilliant attack on a disabled alien cruiser. Amy Carter coordinated bomber runs that targeted the aliens' most dangerous ships. Even Dr. Ryan was contributing, using his knowledge of alien biology to identify the most vulnerable parts of their vessels. The battle raged for hours. As Jake had predicted, the aliens eventually began adapting to human tactics, but by then it was too late. The electromagnetic pulse had destroyed their coordination, and human forces had damaged too many of their ships. "Admiral," the communication officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien command ship." "Put it through," Admiral Mitchell ordered. The voice that came over the speakers was familiar to Jake. It was Commander Zethkai, somehow still alive despite the destruction of his previous ship. "Human forces," the alien commander said, his grinding voice filled with rage and disbelief. "You have surprised us. But this is only one battle. The Catharan Empire spans thousands of worlds. We will return with more ships, more weapons. Admiral," Mitchell looked at Jake. "Would you like to respond, Commander?" Jake took the microphone. "Zethkai, this is Commander Sullivan. Remember me?" There was a long pause before the alien responded. "The prisoner. How did you escape?" "I told you humans. We're more dangerous than you realized," Jake replied. "And this is just the beginning. Your empire has been expanding for thousands of years, taking whatever you wanted because no one could stop you. But now you've met humanity. You cannot defeat the entire Catharan Empire," Zethkai snarled. "We don't have to," Jake said calmly. "We just have to show the galaxy that you can be beaten. How many other species have you conquered over the millennia? How many worlds have you enslaved? They're all watching this battle, Zethkai, and they're seeing that the mighty Catharan can be defeated by a species that's only been in space for a few decades." The transmission went silent for several minutes. When Zethkai spoke again, his voice was different. "Defeated. What are your terms for surrender?" Admiral Mitchell smiled. "All Catharan forces will withdraw from human space immediately. You will release all prisoners and return all stolen technology. And you will broadcast the results of this battle to every world in the galaxy. And if we refuse," Jake leaned forward, "then we hunt down every ship in your invasion fleet and show the rest of the galaxy exactly how we deal with bullies." The alien commander's response was barely a whisper. "We accept your terms." 3 hours later, Jake stood in the observation deck of the Valiant, watching the defeated Ketharan fleet limp away into deep space. Beside him, his friends from the Nightfall shared the moment of victory. "Hard to believe it's over?" Amy Carter said. "It's not over," Jake replied. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy has seen that humans can defend themselves. Now they'll want to know what else we can do." Captain Martinez joined them at the window. "Earth Command is already receiving diplomatic requests from dozens of species. Apparently everyone wants to be friends with the people who defeated the Ketharan." "And what about us?" Tony Brooks asked. "What happens to the crew of the Nightfall?" Jake smiled. "We go back to exploring. The galaxy just got a lot bigger, and there are a lot of new friends out there waiting to meet us." Dr. Ryan pulled up a star chart on his tablet. "I've been analyzing the data we collected from the alien ships. There are species out there that have been fighting the Ketharan for centuries. They could use our help." "You mean we're going to keep fighting?" Danny Garcia asked. "Not fighting," Jake corrected. "Protecting. There's a difference." As the Valiant began its journey back to Earth, Jake thought about everything that had happened since his capture. The aliens had thought they were getting a simple prisoner, someone they could break and use for information. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in human space for too long. They had reminded humanity that the universe was full of dangers, but also full of opportunities for those brave enough to seize them. The Ketharan had ruled the galaxy through fear and superior technology. But humans had something the aliens couldn't understand: the ability to adapt, to learn, and to work together against impossible odds. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of a new ship, the UES Liberation, leading a joint task force of human and alien vessels. Their mission was simple: find species oppressed by the Ketharan and help them gain their freedom. The galaxy was changing. The age of Ketharan dominance was ending, and the age of cooperation was beginning. And it had all started with one human prisoner who refused to break. As the Liberation jumped to hyperspace, heading toward their next mission, Jake allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The aliens had captured a human prisoner, thinking it would give them an advantage. They had been right about one thing: capturing Jake Sullivan had changed everything. It had just changed things in a way they never expected. The human prisoner had become humanity's greatest weapon, not through strength or technology, but through the simple refusal to give up. And that, Jake realized, was what made humans truly dangerous in a galaxy full of predators. They never knew when to quit.